News 6 is brought to you by a grant from the Whirlpool Corporation, Findlay Division.
Hello, and welcome to News 6. I'm Jim Sarin. Today's show is presented by Miss Kathy Lauk's 6th grade class at Vanlue Elementary in Vanlue, Ohio. In our program today, we will share with you some information about horses, Indian caverns, and a new program in our school. The first story is Dawn.
The 6th graders of Vanlue Elementary recently visited Wyandotte Belgian farms in Cary, Ohio. Here we learned about the tallest, heaviest, and strongest group of horses. They are called Belgian horses. Even though the Belgian horse is quite strong, it is among the gentlest of all horses. The owners of the farm, Mr. and Mrs. Dale Houston, raised these gentle giants. Mr. Houston began raising horses when he was a young boy, and now his whole family enjoys raising them. Mrs. Houston says it's very uncomfortable to ride a Belgian. They are so wide you can't put a saddle on them, so you have to ride them bareback. About a year ago, the Houstons had an addition to their horse family. They have a new colt which was delivered prematurely because the mother had arthritis. The colt is about 14 months old now, and Mrs. Houston has named her Little Orphan Annie. Raising horses is fascinating and exciting, but racing horses is even better. Anne has a story.
Ray Broussard of Vanlue, Ohio has led an interesting career. He is a jockey whose riding career spans 25 years. But he is not just an ordinary jockey, he has ridden several winners. Tracy Pedraza talked to Mr. Broussard about his career in horse racing. How did you get started in horse racing?
Well, I was raised on a farm, and my father had horses, and I used to ride them around the farm as a hobby, and until I got good enough to ride races. I started riding races when I was 9 years old, match races, until I was old enough to get a license to ride thoroughbreds on a recognized racetrack. And I was 16 years old.
What was your best showing?
I rode in a derby quite a few times. I could never win it, which is probably a jockey's dream, is winning the Kentucky Derby. I finished second in the race with a horse called My Dad George. And he went on to prove himself as one of the best stallions in the country.
How are you elected to the Hall of Fame?
Well, they elected me into the Hall of Fame for things I accomplished in derbies. And I've won 4 Louisiana Derbies, which is never done before, and it hasn't been done since. I've won 4 New Orleans Handicap, and I've been leading rider in fairgrounds for a number of years. I've set records to where I've won 103 races in 64 days. I've been leading rider such big margins at times.
How does a jockey dress?
Well, most of his clothing is silk because of weight problem. Your shirt is silk, your pants are silk, your boots are, some of them are made out of kangaroo skin, which is very light. I have a pair of boots that I used to wear, probably weighed 4.5 ounces. I used to dress from strip to where I got on a horse. I used to rig, we call it rigged, about 3.5 pounds, 3 pounds. That's including the saddle and all my clothes and equipment.
Mr. Broussard is now retired and leads a quiet life away from the racetrack. Another important person in our community is Mr. Richard Hendricks, whose interests lie below the Earth's surface. Jeremy tells us about it.
Mr. Richard Hendricks of Vanlue, Ohio, owns and operates the Indian Trail Caverns. The caverns are 1,000 feet long, but only 650 feet is open to the public. Mr. Hendricks has reason to believe that the caverns were made 1 million years ago. He talked to our class about them.
This was the exit when these caverns were opened in 1927 to 37. They came out at this opening at that time. And here on the ceiling you can see smoke that was put here before the last glacier. This whole ceiling was smoked up like that when it was originally opened, but the floor was so close to the ceiling that people, when they walked through here, held their hands above their heads from bumping, to keep from bumping their heads, and they wiped away the smoke. When this was originally opened, they came from this other direction, from under the highway, came up through here, walked on the floor, and the original floor was at this point. We have cleaned the glacial sand from here down. There's still over 8 feet of sand below us in this floor that we haven't taken out. There have been over 4 glaciers over this area in the last 1.5 million years. One of the earlier glaciers cut the tops off of some of these caverns, partially filling them. Man came in and lived on that sand. Then the last glacier approached this area. It got too cold for him to remain here. He left. The last glacier came over and covered up his remains in these caverns. We have some of his remains, some of his tools, and other stuff that goes back prior to the last glacier. This was an ocean 400 million years ago, but this was a very unusual place in the ocean. This was a reef, and it was a very unusual reef. It was called a trash reef. Being washed into this reef were many, many minerals. Then it sank as much as a mile below the ocean, with other sedimentary rocks on top of it. And then about 200 million years ago, this was raised up above the ocean like a large molehill under us. But that's actually what happened here. But this being a trash reef made these caverns so unusual because as the acid dissolved out this limestone and other minerals, different minerals that were put here dissolve at different rates. That's what makes our walls so lumpy. And it also left behind some of the undissolved minerals that you see on our walls. The white material you see is flowstone. It's the same as speleotherm. It's the same as stalactites and stalagmites, only it was formed on the walls. This is one place we left where you have to duck. When we bought these caverns,
the caverns go as deep as 40 feet and the average temperature is 32 degrees. We found the caverns to be a fascinating experience, and would like to thank Mr. Hendricks for giving some of us a tour. We learned a lot about the history of the Earth through Mr. Hendricks, and now gifted and talented students can learn a lot from a new class at Vanlue Elementary. Here's Mike with the story.
This year, for the first time at Vanlue Elementary, classes are being offered to the talented and gifted student. The class is called Program Alternatives for Curriculum Enrichment, or PACE for short. The new teacher is Miss Mary Boyle. This provides activity above the normal classroom topics. Some of these activities are studying animals, creative writing, and anatomy. The students do not get their grades as they do in regular classroom. They receive a written evaluation at the end of the year. These special students are chosen through testing, recommendations, and grades. Ms. Boyle wants to teach the students that learning can be fun through imagination and creativity.
Thank you for joining us. Be here next week when 6th graders from Liberty Benton will present New 6. Have a nice week.
News 6 is brought to you by a grant from the Whirlpool Corporation, Findlay Division.